Drivers are furious with the FIA's recent penalties, calling them unfair and out of control. From harsh rulings to confusing race decisions, the governing body has been under intense scrutiny. Many drivers feel these penalties are ruining their races and causing unnecessary frustration. Inside this video, we are going to explore exactly what's going on and whether the FIA is losing its grip on the sport. The FIA has been facing heavy criticism recently, and the spotlight was on them during the Brazilian Grand Prix weekend. From questionable penalties to delayed safety calls, fans and teams alike are questioning their approach. Let's break down some of these incidents and why they've caused such a stir. One of the major issues highlighted was the severity of penalties handed out. Many teams felt that the FIA was overly strict, punishing drivers for incidents that could have been handled with warnings. These decisions left several teams frustrated, as they felt it disrupted the natural flow of the races and added unnecessary tension. Another moment that stood out was the aborted start. Lando Norris and other drivers reacted quickly, raising concerns about the track conditions. While their actions were justified, the FIA's handling of the situation left many questioning their preparedness and decision-making processes. Controversy over the virtual safety car. Perhaps the most talked about moment was during the sprint race. Nico Hülkenberg's car was stranded in Sector 2 for an extended period. Initially, only yellow flags were waved, signaling a hazard, but not enough to ensure full safety. Despite the clear need for action, the FIA delayed deploying a virtual safety car, VSC. The turning point? The VSC was only activated after the two McLaren drivers swapped positions. This timing raised eyebrows, with many, including Liam Lawson, calling it unbelievable and questioning the FIA's impartiality. Fans speculated whether the decision favored certain teams, further tarnishing the FIA's credibility. Well, this is just the beginning. Max Verstappen tried to gain an edge on Oscar Piastri during the virtual safety car, VSC period, going side by side with the Australian. This move earned Verstappen a 5-second penalty and a penalty point on his super license. The FIA's decision was justified, given that Verstappen had previously played a role in forcing this rule's implementation after the controversial 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix restart. While this penalty seemed fair, it added to a weekend full of questionable calls. Moreover, the FIA's handling of red flags during wet weather qualifying left many scratching their heads. While red flags were applied quickly in some cases, the delay during Lance Stroll's crash in Q2 stood out. Stroll's car, with a broken rear wing, was still moving on the track, clearly unfit to continue. A red flag, or at least double yellow flags, should have been issued immediately for safety. However, the FIA waited for 5 drivers to complete their laps before calling a red flag, a delay of 40 seconds. This inconsistency was even more frustrating when compared to quicken red flag responses for drivers like Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz, whose crashes were handled in under 10 seconds. The FIA claimed they waited because they believed Stroll could drive out of the situation. However, with his car severely damaged and unsafe to drive back to the pits, this explanation didn't hold up. The delay not only compromised safety, but also undermined fairness in qualifying. FIA's decisions raise serious safety concerns. Further elaborating on the situation, the FIA's handling of red flags during qualifying and race events in Brazil has drawn sharp criticism from teams, especially regarding their delayed response during Lance Stroll's crash. This delay has raised significant concerns about driver safety and consistency in decision-making. According to the FIA, when Stroll's car was stationary in the runoff area after spinning out, they opted for double-waved yellow flags instead of an immediate red flag. Their reasoning? Double yellows act as a localized red flag, forcing drivers to slow down significantly. In theory, this meant no driver could improve their lap times, maintaining fairness. However, critics argue that this approach ignored the bigger picture, driver safety. The car was severely damaged and stranded in a precarious position at one of the most dangerous corners on the circuit. For many, including Christian Horner, this response was unacceptable. Horner didn't mince words when addressing the situation. He stated, "I don't understand why it took so long for the red flag to come out. Turn 3 is one of the most dangerous corners on the circuit, and a car in the middle of the track after hitting the barriers hard demands immediate action." He even emphasized that the delay, over 40 seconds, was not justifiable, particularly when the safety of drivers was at stake. He pointed out that in other incidents during the weekend, red flags were issued almost instantaneously. This inconsistency adds to the frustration and confusion for teams and fans. This decision directly affected drivers like Logan Sargent, who was disqualified from Q2 after an invalidated lap and faced a 5-place grid penalty. Starting further back in the race due to the FIA's delayed response added unnecessary complications to an already challenging weekend. Even for Stroll, whose car was severely damaged, the situation became more precarious. The delay increased the risks, not only for him, but also for other drivers still completing their laps. Horner concluded by stating that safety must always take precedence. Allowing cars to finish laps when there's a serious incident on track is a dangerous precedent. Teams and fans alike expect consistent and immediate responses in such situations to protect everyone involved. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen also echoed Christian Horner's frustration with the FIA's delayed response during Lance Stroll's crash. Verstappen didn't hold back, stating, "If someone goes straight into the wall, it's an immediate red flag. I don't understand why it takes 30, 40 seconds. Letting drivers finish their laps during such a situation is ridiculous. It's not even worth discussing." Stroll's incident didn't just end with his crash. After spinning out, he failed to return his car to the start/finish line. Instead of following the tarmac path back to the pits, Stroll stalled on the track, complicating matters further. His actions triggered an aborted start scenario, where cars are required to remain stationary and await further instructions from race control. However, Lando Norris, deciding to take matters into his own hands, initiated another formation lap without approval. Other drivers followed, leaving the FIA scrambling to regain control. Norris's decision to start another formation lap caused a stir within the paddock. While the FIA penalised him with a €5,000 fine and a reprimand, it raised broader questions about how such situations should be handled. The FIA clarified that drivers must follow the race control's instructions during aborted starts. While Norris's penalty may seem minor, it adds to his tally of reprimands. A 5th reprimand would result in a 10-place grid penalty, a significant consequence in a tightly contested championship. Similarities to Monza 2023. The FIA drew parallels to an incident at Monza in 2023, where Yuki Tsunoda couldn't reach the grid due to a technical issue. Despite similar warnings from race control, drivers completed another formation lap under the safety car's guidance. This inconsistency in handling similar scenarios further aggravates fans and teams alike. Well, the aborted start during the race caused widespread confusion. Although the signal for an aborted start was properly displayed on the light panel and communicated to the teams, one driver, positioned on the front row, misunderstood the situation and began an additional formation lap. This action triggered a chain reaction, with all the following drivers assuming they needed to follow suit. Realizing the situation, the race director quickly instructed teams to complete another formation lap and return to the grid to resume the correct aborted start procedure. Max Verstappen noticed this irregularity and immediately questioned it over the radio, asking why the drivers were doing an extra lap when the instructions had been clear. His race engineer Gianpiero Lambiase complimented Verstappen for staying alert amid the chaos. The race saw several penalties handed out, some of which appeared unnecessarily harsh, adding to the drivers' frustrations. In the narrow second sector, Behrman, Haas, and Colapinto, Williams, collided as Behrman touched Colapinto's car from behind. While the move was deemed dangerous, it was Behrman who suffered most, losing positions. Colapinto, on the other hand, continued unaffected. The FIA labelled Behrman's actions as dangerous driving and imposed a 10-second penalty. Behrman later admitted to making errors during the race, saying, "It was a tough day. I made too many mistakes, which cost me positions and time." Finishing P12 close to the points despite the setbacks taught me a lot for next time. Oscar Piastri received a 10-second penalty for an overly aggressive dive on Liam Lawson. Attempting an inside overtake, Piastri's move resulted in Lawson spinning and ultimately ruining his race. Although Piastri finished ahead of Lawson, the penalty highlighted how high-risk moves can significantly impact other drivers. The incident cost Lawson the chance to add valuable points, which could have tightened the Constructors' Championship battle for P6. With such stakes, these aggressive and sometimes reckless maneuvers draw scrutiny not just on the drivers, but also on the FIA's penalty decisions. So what do you think of the drivers' rage against the FIA under ongoing penalties? Comment below your views and subscribe for more such videos.